Hey, how are you guys doing? Welcome to the Antoy Show. Today we have an amazing guest, Devon Harris. He is an original member of the Jamaican Bobsled Team, a three-time Olympian, a motivational speaker, philanthropist, and owner of Keep On Pushing Foundation. Welcome to the show, Devon.
Antoy, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're so excited to have you today, and we just want to talk about all the amazing things that you've done and are doing. And I'd love to start with you being a bobsled member because, you know, people made fun of me in Jamaica saying, you guys don't even have snow in Jamaica. How do you have a bobsled team? So tell me a little bit about that story, how you became a part of that, your journey to get there.
Indeed. Well, if they're making fun of you, imagine the kind of fun they're having with me. But you know, I grew up in Olympic Gardens in Kingston, you know, and I often, you know, joke with my American friends that that's where we grew all of our Olympians. But anybody who knows of Olympic Gardens know that it's one of the tougher neighborhoods in Kingston. But I wanted to compete in the Olympic Games. I started running track when I was 15 years old, and I saw ABC Wild World of Sports had a series called Road to Moscow. This was 1979, just before the Olympics in 1980, and they showcased Olympic athletes from around the world. And what was amazing about all of those stories was how average and ordinary these people were. Because when we think of Olympic athletes, we think of these superhuman beings. And they were very average, ordinary people with extraordinary dreams and an extraordinary desire to accomplish those dreams. And so that's where the seed was planted, really. And so if you fast forward, it's 1987. I'm now a young Army officer in the Jamaica Defense Force. And I'm thinking, to myself at 21. So what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Know that you're an Army officer, you achieve your big dreams. Come on, man, you're a slacker. And I'm like, oh yeah, the Olympics. They were coming up in 1988 in Seoul, Korea. So I started training because I was a middle distance runner, 800, 1500. Because you know, Antoy, when everybody in Jamaica sprints fast. You know, some faster than others. I was among the others. So I ran 800, and so I started running, thinking and hoping I could get fit enough to compete in the Seoul Olympics. And run about that time, two Americans who lived in Jamaica came up with the idea to start a bobsled team because they saw a pushcart derby, two crazy guys going on the side of a mountain in a cart, and then discovered that a big part of a bobsled race is the start. We have sprinters. But the guys on the summer team didn't want to do it, so they came to the Army looking for athletes. And my colonel suggested, you know, in other words, he ordered me to go to the team trials. And so obviously I had a choice. I didn't have to go to the team trials to make it. I don't think he expected me to make the team. But no, I saw this as my big opportunity to achieve a lifelong dream of going to the Olympic Games. So I just went, and I guess they liked my smile and they selected me.
I can see that. I can see that. Yeah, and it seems as though for leading up to that, you were an athlete already. You know, you had the strength and agility and everything needed for the Olympics.
I tell you this, so when I went to the team trials, I speak about this all the time. I was what I would have described at the time as being Army fit, not sports fit. And by that, I mean, I just finished more than a year of constant Army training. So I could have walked 100 miles with 50 pounds on my back and a rifle in my hand. I just started the sports training, you know, thinking I could probably get fit enough to get to the Olympics in a year. And here it is, I was having to go try out for an Olympic team. So I didn't feel like I was prepared physically. In addition to that, as I mentioned, I'm a middle distance runner, 800, 1500 meters. Bobsledding is about sprinting, so they were testing for speed and explosive power. So I kind of felt like I was way behind the 8 ball on this, but I just went and I tried hard, man. I put everything I had into it, and it worked out.
Yeah, it paid off. Well,
Indeed.
I love watching the Olympics, but I always wonder what it's like to be there and be in it. What's that energy like?
Man, where do you start? So I know you're an actress. So imagine that, you grow up as a young girl and you're watching the Oscars and you're watching people on the red carpet and you're going, oh my God, those are some of the best actors in the world or actresses in the world. And then one day you're on the red carpet, right? So I grew up watching the Olympics and seeing these men and women march in the opening ceremonies and going, wow, those are some of the best athletes in the world. And one day, I step into a stadium with 50,000 people, and I promise you, more cameras than you can count. And because you've seen this played out so many times before, that in that moment, your image is on TV around the world, and there's some little kid looking at you thinking, wow, he's one of the best athletes in the world, and you're hoping you can live up to that, right? But, in that moment, you're living your dream. In that moment, I'm like, wow, I made it. I'm actually in the Olympic Games, So that was kind of like the first thing that hit me. And then just being in the village, I describe it as utopia. 16 days of really being shut out from the world, not being exposed to all the craziness, and getting a chance to really appreciate the diversity and yet the oneness of us as human beings. 88 in particular, Antoy, was poignant for me because I was a young army officer schooled in the art of war. And at the time, the world was at the height of the Cold War. And so I was made to believe from my training that everyone behind the Iron Curtain was evil. Mm-hmm. And here I am in the Olympic Village, and we're in the game arcade, and I'm killing the Pac-Man, right? I'm dating myself here. I can't do this stuff here, but I can do the Pac-Man. And I'm having a really good game of Pac-Man, and on my left is a guy from East Germany, and my right is a guy from Poland. And you just hit you in that moment that there's so much more we have in common than the differences, right? They're there to represent their country, and they share the same human dreams and aspirations, and we suffer from the same very similar human frailties and foibles. And so the real difference was, it hit me in that moment, ideology. And so, yeah, there was just this kind of oneness in the village that honestly you don't get outside of the village.
Mm-hmm. Sounds really awesome.
It was an amazing experience for sure. Yeah. 4 years ago in 2018 in Korea, there's a group called the World Olympian Association, and they started a program in Rio where they selected 5 summer Olympians and inducted them into a group called Olympians for Life. And prior to, and I'm like, I'm an Olympian. I thought I was already an Olympian for life, but prior to Pyeongchang, I got a call, and they wanted to recognize me as one of the first 5 Winter Olympians to be conferred the title, the honor of Olympians for Life. So I'm
awesome.
A double Olympian for life now, I guess. I'm not sure how you.
Now they put the official stamp on you.
Yeah, it's flattering. I think there's hardly a higher honor than to be recognized for something you did by your peers. So very appreciative of that recognition.
Well, I have one more question regards the Olympic and the bobsled. What did you think about the movie?
I thought it was a good story, good human interest story, positive. I tell you this, I remember the first time we saw it, myself and Chris Stokes, teammate, we went to the restroom and Chris was like, man, I'm inspired to do something, I don't know what. I'm like, yeah, me too. we were, you know how there's all the stereotypes about Jamaicans, or we are laid back, which is true, but and we all smoke weed, which is not true. So we were concerned about that being in the movie, and so that's what we're like, no weed scene. We're really, really relieved about that. But good human interest story, as I said earlier, many valuable life lessons. Obviously not true to form. They took a lot of liberties, but I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Okay. Yes, I definitely enjoyed it as well. Not only you've motivated yourself and hit the pinnacle of athleticism, and you're now inspiring others through your motivational speaking. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's kind of interesting how all this journey, part of my journey started. I was working to qualify for my third Olympic Games, and a Jamaican guy, Mikey Silk. Mikey, respect. He was the manager for Tony Rebel and Garnet Silk. They are relatives, they are cousins. And he wanted to be my agent, and I never had an agent before. It sounded kind of cool. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then started to tell me about this thing called motivational speaking. And I said, sure, I'll do that after the Olympics. Because, the soldier in me, it says, selection and maintenance of the aim. First thing, first principle of war. I don't think I'm giving out in the States here. But it turned out that his reason, purpose in my life was to tell me about this thing called motivational speaking, because it did nothing to help me to go to the Olympics. So now I'm working with some new guys. I'm like, hey, after the Olympics, I want to be a motivational speaker. No clue what that means. And I was in Park City, Utah, working to qualify. This is around about November '96, and a guy who eventually became my agent comes to my room, sticks a VHS tape in the VCR, so you realize how long ago that is. And he goes, can you do that? And it's a guy called Vince Percent. He was a Canadian speed skier Olympian from '92 speaking. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I go off to the Olympics in Nagano '98, and I came back and I started speaking for free, and one thing led to another, and nobody booed. And I just kind of grew from there. But, on a serious note, when I'm on stage, I really feel like I'm on purpose. I feel like, wow, this is what I'm meant to be doing, sharing, my experiences and the little wisdom that I've gathered from that, and just, trying to inspire people to go be their best as well.
And what have you found are the things that cause the lack of motivation in people?
A lack of clarity, not being clear on what it is that they want out of life, what their goals are, no clear vision. Imagine that you left your house with no destination in mind. You're just going to wander around the streets, right? Which is, and so you'll go down the street, and there's a traffic jam, a roadblock, an accident. You turn around, you go somewhere else, right? Versus if you had a definite address, a goal, a destination in mind. You may have to take a few left turns and right turns that you didn't plan on taking, but you are motivated because you had a reason. I'm going to go see Antoy, right? So you have a reason to get there. So when you start out with that goal, that creates that first point, that first focus point. And then now you have to figure out why it is that you want that goal. Why am I going to go see Antoy? Well, because she's going to give me some money. So I need that. I have to go.
Good reason.
Right, exactly. So you have to connect with the reason. Because although I'm called a motivational speaker, really the real motivation comes from within. And so my job is to inspire people to connect with those reasons that are inside of them. So just having that goal, and then, identifying the reason and connecting with it, intensifying that emotional connection with the reason.
And what areas do you do motivational speaking? I know you do for individuals. You do companies, corporations as well.
Yeah, man. I'm fortunate to have a story a set of experiences that I would say transcend barriers. So from across industries, from hospitality to food to tech to healthcare to bio, pharmaceutical to financial services to, the military to not-for-profits. I speak on a wide variety of topics. Obviously, people are now gravitated to the keep on pushing message, but I say where I earn my keep is in making the effort, putting in the work into identify those areas of the group's experiences and the challenges that they're facing, and making those connections, drawing those analogies between their experiences and mine, so I can, I customize a presentation that they can relate to, as opposed to getting on stage and telling a can of soup. Kind of feel that's cheating. Obviously, the story doesn't change, but what lessons from my story am I going to tell and apply to their experiences so that they can now connect with those reasons that we spoke about before, whether as individuals or as a team, as an organization, to move forward.
Well, just listening to you, I feel motivated.
It's the Jamaican connection working right there, I think.
It's the full package. You have the full package.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to talk a little bit about, because you have the Keep on Pushing Foundation.
Yeah, man. Thank you for asking about that. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Olympic Gardens. Jamaicans will know that as Waterhouse. And you know that it's on the rough side of town, violent, depressed, economically, and so on. And so a number of years ago, I was back in Jamaica. I went to my old primary school, my old elementary school for my American friends. And I was speaking to the principal and asked him what the biggest challenge was. And it was that kids were coming to school hungry. Now, obviously, if you're hungry, you can't learn. If you don't learn, you don't get educated. Lack of education means that you don't become a contributing member of society. In fact, it could end up becoming a pariah of society. And I mean, nobody needed to explain to me what that meant and what the possibilities were, because that's my experience, right? I attended that school, sat in those very classrooms, ran around in that same schoolyard, lived in the same neighborhood. And I remember, especially at the end of high school, before I enlisted in the Army, just the despair I felt, not knowing, because there was a real possibility that when I went to join the Army, I would not have been selected, because there's a really rigorous selection process. What do I do with myself then? And that was a real moment of despair. And having served in the Army, having lived in an environment and see the poverty and a certain amount of despair and nonchalance and just like resignation to what that situation is, seeing the violence as well, and then being in the Army and going back into that neighborhood as well to go find the bad boys. So I was able to live both sides of this equation. I wanted to do what I could to give as many of these kids hope, because I think that's the thing that they need most. So we do a breakfast program, a school supplies program. We just built a sick bay, a nurse's station for kids who aren't feeling so well, and a private area for the guidance counselor to give some guidance. Those things are important, but I think more importantly is a hope that you're giving them, right? And a hope I describe as a lifeblood of possibility. And if they think that there is some hope, and if I can go back and go, hey, I used to be in this classroom and look what I've done, not to impress them, but to go, I am one of you. And I've done this thing, and you're probably even smarter than I am. Guess what you could do too? So that's what we hope that we aspire to achieve with the Keep on Pushing Foundation.
Yeah, I definitely think hope is really, really important to know that someone that looks like you, that came from where you came from, accomplished this. And so you can too.
I've been fortunate to have always had that kind of mindset. And, I'm hoping my goal is to present myself, especially to those kids, as that example. I so believe in authenticity. And I think when I'm there, I'm like the most authentic I could possibly become, because I'm like, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm like, hey, I used to live right over there. And, us Jamaicans are very proud at times, and we don't want to talk about the unsavory side of our existence. I'll call it that. And so I remember the principal who remarked about me coming to Jamaica to the school with someone from the US, and then pointing and go, yeah, I used to live over there, and she wasn't expecting that, but that's the fact. Right. And I can say that to the kids and they can relate to that. I'm like, yeah, but I've gone around the world now to almost all the continents. Um, so if I can do it, you can do it.
And you can inspire those young minds at that early age, and they see that, then they can get to it even quicker.
Yes, I agree. I so agree. But the way I look at it is like, hey, you know what? You start with what you have from where you are, which you know as well. I look at life like that sometimes, and I just like stop myself. I'm like, you didn't have those experiences. These are your experiences. Make the best of it and move forward.
Well,
Okay.
you are so inspiring. I see why people are booking you left and right to come and speak.
Well, they're
And
booking me
motivating.
left and right. I want them to start booking up and down as well. So we still have a
Up and
reservation.
down and a little bit of room. During this time, a lot of people are, dealing with the coronavirus and the challenges of that. So what advice would you like to leave them with?
So as you know, my message is keep on pushing. Let me try and use a bobsled analogy here. So when I'm driving my sled, there's a part of the corner where we call a take on. You want to hit that, and it will. Your goal is to go on a straight line around a corner, the shortest distance between 2 points. And if you miss the take on, the sled do what we call a wave, up and down, up and down. You're not where you're supposed to be. And the tendency is to want to control the sled, to make it go where you want it to be. That only makes it worse. And it's counterintuitive to kind of sit there and breathe into the moment and just kind of wait for that, almost perfect time, for that time when it's time to act decisively. And so as we go through this pandemic, it's one of those things where, you have absolutely no control, or very little control over what the virus is doing, but you can always control what you do. And it is against our instinct to go, let me take a breather and ride this out and really focus on what my next step would be, should be. And so that's your challenge, to really like focus. Like when I'm in those situations, a sled, my eyes get really big. I'm really hyper focused, like waiting for that moment. So folks, focus, really focus, take a deep breath, know that the end of the corner is coming. And when it gets there, you better be ready to act, and act decisively.
Such powerful words. Thank you. And do you have a book?
I do have a couple of books. Yes, I Can is a children's book. Yes, I Can, the story of the Jamaican Bobsled Team, written to verse, that's full of lyrics. And it just tells the story of our team, and more importantly, the goal was to encourage kids to just kind of believe in themselves, and when things get challenging or people tell them it can't be done or the dream seems so impossible, to just say to yourself, yes, I can. My second book is Keep on Pushing: Hot Lessons from Cool Runnings semi-autobiographical motivational book that really tells my story of growing up in Kingston and joining the Army and Sanders and the Olympics, and kind of tying it in with bobsledding and the movie and those life lessons.
So what's next for you, Devon? What's next?
That's a really good question. It's really to continue to grow in what I do and to continue to impact more lives. So I really want to continue to promulgate this keep on pushing message. It relates to so many aspects of our lives, personally and professionally, and definitely keep on pushing the charity work that I'm doing. I mean, we're working at my elementary school for the most part, but the goal is to grow that work across Jamaica, across the Caribbean, into South and Central America. So there's, as we say in Jamaica, a whole heap of work left to be done.
And if someone wants to participate or add value to the work that you're doing or contribute, or where do they go?
Thank you for asking that. I'm the easiest guy to find, so I like to believe. My website is devonharris.com, devonharris.com, and you can email me directly from there. I'm on IG, Instagram, and Twitter, Keep On Pushing 88. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm the guy in the Jamaica Bobsled uniform. There are a bunch of Devon Harrises there, but this one is in a Jamaican Bobsled uniform. So yeah, man, it's easy to find. Google me and you Google my name and it will show up somewhere. Looking forward to hearing from people though. Yeah, I'd love to connect.
So if they go to your website, they can get all the information to help with the foundation, pick up the books, and find out more about your motivational speaking and even stuff about the bobsled and the Olympics.
Absolutely, yeah. So come on over, devonharris.com.
Well, thank you so much, Devon, for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. For more inspiring content, go to youtube.com/TheAntoyShow. And to share your videos and shows and web series, go to mangoseed.tv. And for coaching and fun life and business tips, go to antoygrant.com. See you guys real soon. Bye.